again, thank you very much, distinguished guests. It is an honor to welcome you to this webinar on the Global Governance Initiative and People-Centric Governance. I am Zaid Khan, as I've been introduced as Senior Vice Chairman of the Pakistan Stockbroker Association. Today's discussion comes at a time when global challenges demand renewed cooperation and a focus on inclusive decision making. The Global Governance Initiative, launched by President Xi Jinping on September 1st, 2025, during the Shanghai Cooperation Organization SCO Summit, lays out five core principles: sovereign equality, respect for international law, multilateralism, people-centered development, and real measurable results. These are no mere words. The initiative has been described by international observers as a bid to reform global governance so that it is better able to respond to what the global South has long argued. Underrepresentation in decision making, uneven international law rules, and growing gaps in who benefits from global cooperation. The people-centric approach ensures that global governance delivers tangible outcomes, from poverty reduction to climate resilience, for those who are most affected by global crises. The GGI emphasizes that people of all nations are not only the beneficiaries of global governance, but its fundamental actors. Their well-being is the ultimate purpose. In other words, governance structure must deliver in terms of health, environmental protection, economic opportunity, fairness, and social stability, especially for those most marginalized. We are seeing rising global challenges, climate crisis, economic inequality, public health emergencies, and growing geopolitical fracturing that hit ordinary people first and the hardest. The initiative principle of real results means moving beyond lofty goals to measurable progress. For Pakistan, this aligns with ongoing reforms, including the IMF-backed governance and corruption diagnostic assessment aimed at improving transparency and institutional accountability. Strengthening both global and domestic governance will be the key to creating inclusive markets and ensuring that financial system works for all citizens. I look forward to the discussion ahead and to exploring how we as stakeholders can contribute to shaping a more fair, transparent, and people-focused governance system. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Zahar Latif, for your very brief and very comprehensive remarks. And now we will proceed with our agenda. Before inviting Mr. Victor Gao, I just want to highlight one thing. There can be 100 ways to define governance, but for me, the governance is an order sense to keep the dreams alive for a secure and a peaceful and a prosperous future for the people. If any governance system which can keep the dreams alive, there's a good system. So let's see how the GCI will turn out. To know more about the Global Governance Initiative, I would like to request Mr. Gao. He is the Vice Chairman, Center for China and Globalization, and a well-known commentator on an international level. And he also served at a very important seat during his career. Sir, the floor is yours. Sir, unmute yourself.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Victor Gao. I hope you can hear me. It's my great honor to attend this very important webinar. When we talk about governance, I think it's in the overall context of President Xi Jinping's 4 global initiatives of civilization, of security, of governance, as well as of development. For us, all these global initiatives are inherently interconnected and reinforcing each other. Therefore, it is important to emphasize one point to start with. That is, what is the world we are living in? What is the international order we are living in? I would say, when we go back to the original intent of the founding of the international order back in 1945, after defeating Nazi Germany and Japanese fascism. The world order established in 1945 was meant to be multipolar and multilateral, as reflected in the composition of the Security Council of the United Nations, with 5 permanent member states, each with a veto power, including China. China was a founding member of the United Nations from the very start. China actually was the first country to sign the United Nations Charter. Therefore, China has no problem with the international order we are living in if it is reflecting the original intent of multipolarity and multilateralism. And it is the other country which has changed along the way. It calls itself out as the sole unipolar in the world. It wants to dictate its terms to the rest of the world. Therefore, if there is any problem, China has a problem with this changing nature that's one country that is about to bring about. And China really wants to bring the international order to the original intent. Now, when we talk about governance, we cannot talk about the governance without fundamental points like process, procedure, and the structure, or sometimes hierarchy, for example, and the division of work and the division of responsibilities. We also need to really define what will be the ultimate goal of this governance. Now, in the world of today, we actually see very dangerous signs developing. For example, this quantum wrecking of free trade is a major problem. And this repositioning of the world from multipolarity to unipolarity is very dangerous. And for some country to hold a gun at the head of all the other countries is very dangerous. And for one big country to make decisions which have a direct impact on all the other countries, and the decisions will be judged by an appeal court in that country, not in Pakistan, not in Europe, not in the Middle East, but back in the United States of America, to be illegal and sometimes unconstitutional. This is shocking. I think all of us need to be disturbed that the acts enforced by that particular government to be held illegal by its own appeals court. Now, the fact that that government has rushed the situation to the attention of the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court of the United States has rushed out to schedule an urgent hearing of this particular case, is also of great importance, because I think the world now is at a threshold as to what to expect from the Supreme Court of the United States. If it holds to uphold the decision of the Appeals Court of the United States, hopefully the Trump global tariff war will lose a lot of its steam, and it may even collapse on its own weight. But God forbid, if the Supreme Court of the United States decides in favor of President Trump and his government, most likely President Trump and his government will redouble their ferocity in bringing about the full weight of this global tariff war against the interests of many countries in the world. So we are at a crossroad. We cannot talk about governance as if it exists in a vacuum. We need to think about these governance issues in the overall context of this challenge to international order based on multipolarity and multilateralism, a direct challenge and a frontal attack on free trade, for example, and taking actions on massive scale with global impact, which are judged by its own appeals court as illegal. So I think we need to bear all these major points in mind when we talk about governance, etc. Fortunately, China, I think, is doing the right thing, thinking about the overall benefits for mankind as a whole, rather than using any unilateral thinking or unilateral action which may actually challenge the international law, international structure based on multipolarity and multilateralism. Therefore, I think what China brings about onto the table is a sign of rationality, a sign of wisdom, a sign of very much caring for each other, rather than really dictating its unilateral wish as if it should be enforced onto the other countries. Therefore, before I wrap it up, I just want to say all these global initiatives about civilization, security, governance, and development are integrated together. And we cannot talk one in disregard of the others, and we cannot talk about each of these initiatives or all of these four initiatives as if they exist in a vacuum. I think the megatrend in the world remains that development should be the hard truth, and we all need to treat each other as an equal. We all need to rally around the center of the United Nations based on multipolarity and multilateralism. We all need to really accuse and condemn war of all kinds and uphold each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity and independence of all countries. And on that basis, when we talk about governance, when we talk about major decision making in the world, we need to deal with them with all the care, all the prudence that's required. And we need to absolutely uphold the international order as a civilized order rather than allowing it to go back into the laws of the jungle and to allow any single country to claim to be the unipole or unipolarity of the world and try to strike fear in so many other countries in the world. Before I wrap up, one final point. It seems that one particular president and one particular big country seems to take great delight in striking fear in others. But fear is not respect. And fear most likely will trigger countermeasures. And fear will trigger retaliation. Fear is not long lasting. You cannot strike fear as if fear will hold your opponent or friends or foes alike in perpetual fear. And respect is the most important thing. But respect is so difficult to take, but so fast to lose. So again, I hope when we talk about governance, we'll talk about how to earn respect, how to make sure respect is long lasting, and how to avoid any country striking fear in all the other countries or try to create dominance based on fear. I don't think the rest of the world wants to live in fear. We want to live in peace and in harmony and enjoy the benefits of development and enjoy the light of a civilized world rather than laws of the jungle. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gao, for sparing time to deliver this lecture. Definitely, you pointed out two things very important. One, the global governance is on the crossroad. So we have to decide about what should be the right way. And second, fear. Fear is not sustainable. It's a very short-lived and is followed by destruction. So we need to decide about either we have to move forward with fear or with the respect. Now, I would like to request our next speaker for today, Dr. Nabil Goher. He was the Assistant Secretary General of Commonwealth, and he is also on the board of the King's College of London for the governments, and he is also the member of the MIT Group on the Leadership. And right now, he is serving as the Vice President of PATH International, that is the International Organization for the Health. And he is traveling right now. He is in China to deliver another lecture, but I have kidnapped him in between those lectures. Dr. Nabil, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum and ni hao from Beijing. Can you hear me properly?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. All protocols observed. So many thanks, Shakil, for convening this important meeting or webinar. I have to start with an apology. I was supposed to join from London, so I have this 7 hours of jet lag. Plus, last night I had my board meeting, which finished at 3 a.m. Beijing time. So I have a double whammy. If I'm not that articulate, you have to apologize me. Few points. Your webinar is timely, as the UNGA high-level week is in full swing. Also, it's much needed for the world as was said earlier, what we are going through. And I see it as a period of great transition. And before making my points, I must say that it's a huge honor and privilege to join such an esteemed group of speakers. And I cannot agree more with what has been said earlier. Let me start with the 5 core concepts or principles first that have been laid out in GGI for the world to consider. Number 1, sovereign equality. The question is, why sovereign equality? The current international system was designed in an unjust and unfair manner by a group of few victors with a hegemon calling the shots. In that system, there were states that were considered more equal than equals. This has caused significant issues in the last 80 years. It's about time to design the new system, which is fairer, which is just, which is equal, and Professor Gao was saying, which is inclusive. Secondly, the international rule of law must be the foundation, I repeat, of the new global governance system. These days, we see that it's being flouted repeatedly by the countries that are militarily powerful. This is turning our world into a jungle, and this has been mentioned earlier also, the rule of jungle, which is not acceptable. Thirdly, upholding multilateralism is imperative. Together, we, the humanity, have been able to solve the trickiest and most wicked problems in the world. To my understanding, diversity of thought and perspectives brings tolerance and enriches common solutions. It goes without saying that unilateralism becomes self-serving, divisive, and parochial. The world cannot afford it, as most of our current problems are global in character and require multilateral action. Fourthly, why people-centric approach? A firm move away from the power, politics, and interest-based approach is needed, which is the cornerstone of the existing system, unfortunately. We, the people of the world, deserve better. We deserve peace, as was said earlier. We deserve development. And most of us don't hate each other. Peaceful coexistence and harmony with nature is good for all of us. So I like this principle of people-centric approach of global governance. Fifthly, focus on real results. It is essential. There has been a lot of talk, too much diplomacy, if I may say so. Sorry to the ambassadors. I have been in that role myself in my previous positions. Abundant rhetoric, an excessive focus on processes. As the system design was flawed, it could not produce significant results. This is why the current global governance system is losing legitimacy. It is fractured. We need to build hope. You have yourself said that any governance system should continue to give us not only hope, but we should have our dreams that should be alive, that should be kept alive. And we have to build trust. And there's no better medicine, believe you me, than the results for building trust. Now, moving on to the question of why GGI was needed. Again, I'm sharing my perspective here. The current global governance system was designed 80 or so years ago, 8 decades ago. The world around us has changed significantly since then. There have been huge political, economic, and technological shifts since then. The contemporary reality and problems are very different. Just to give you two examples, the existing system was designed in the industrial age. It's very bureaucratic. It reflects that reality. We live in an information age now, which is instant, which demands different institutions, organizations, and ways of doing things. Secondly, climate change is an existential threat to all of us right now, which was nowhere seen at that time. So the point which I'm making is that the current system is kind of outdated or out of place. Now, before closing, I wanted to make another important point, which was made by the earlier speaker. To my understanding, GGI is the continuation of a process, which is a process of solutions, wisdom, and experience. This is, you call it the fifth or the fourth. To my understanding, this is the fifth one in the series, starting from BRI, GDI, GSI, and GCI. Now, in closing, from my perspective, GGI is a great starting point. It has 5 pillars or principles. Now, dialogue can start. Conversations on relevant institutions, organizations, financing mechanisms, and policy processes will follow and must follow. We must move forward in a consensual manner. There is a danger that if we do not tackle the global challenges together, then each one of us will die in its own silo because we are facing existential threats. No matter how big and great one country is, we must choose to swim together in the sea of solutions. We must build a new word, a word of hope, a word of action, a word of wisdom, and a word of peaceful coexistence, and a word of results. GGI is a wonderful first step in that direction. I'll stop here, Shakil. Thank you very much once again for the opportunity to share my thoughts. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Nabil, and you are very much articulated, and it did not seem that you are tired or you are traveling. And I just want to also share with the forum. So Dr. Nabil is trying to establish some governance forum in Pakistan also. He is thinking about it and working on it. Inshallah, one day we will be able to see him in Pakistan to have this forum. With that, now we will move to our next speaker. And our next speaker is Dr. Dennis Samal. He is the director of Scheller Institute, USA and Latin America. He is also editor and head of the Economic Intelligence Review. That is a very popular magazine among the global south intellectuals and the leaders also, but unfortunately in Pakistan it is not that much popular. So Dr. Anas.
Thank you very much, Shakil, and my greetings to all of you. It's a great honor to be in the presence of experts on these matters under discussion, which are indeed very urgent. I'm speaking to you from Washington, D.C. Just up the road in New York City, we have the UNGA underway right now, and it is kind of a microcosm of the global conflict, which we are discussing here today. I'm interested in particular in focusing on one of the features of the Global Governance Initiative, and that is towards the end where it refers to priority will be given to areas where governance is in urgent need and scant supply, such as the reform of the international financial architecture. Now, one of the earlier speakers correctly pointed out that the very laws which have been passed by the President of the United States, Donald Trump, in terms of trade warfare, and I will refer to this rather as crypto tariffs, and I'll explain why in a moment, are being questioned by the Appeals Court of the United States and taken to the Supreme Court. I have to say that I have more faith at this moment in the court of reality than I do in the Supreme Court of the United States. What I mean is the following. The world stage has clearly a unipolar factor going on, trying to impose its view with the laws of the jungle, the views best known in the West as those associated with Thomas Hobbes, who you may recall wrote the famous Leviathan. The argument is that all men are animals, we are all beasts, we all are at war one with each, and we therefore need a Leviathan, a dictator, to somehow or other control things. And what is perhaps most shocking is that the President of the United States was just in the United Kingdom and actually referred to Hobbes as one of the great points of legacy to the United States, which is absolutely false. That is not what the United States was founded on. But that view of man is one of the things on the world stage. The other point of view is a very different one, represented, for example, by the GGI, and the idea that we have a common interest, that mankind has a common future. In the United States, our own Constitution has what we call the General Welfare Clause, which says that the general welfare of the entire population, and in fact the world, must be the primary consideration. But in addition to these two forces at play, at work right now, I will argue that there is a third, which, at least in the West, is not really taken into consideration. And that is reality. There is a reality of the actual physical economic process and world developments which cannot be eliminated by decree. No matter how much Leviathan yells and screams, there is a certain reality. Let me give you two examples of this. The trade question, the tariffs being imposed. The tariffs will backfire on the United States. It will produce three results, in my view. Number one, it will lead to defaults on the debt of many developing sector nations, for the simple reason that they obtain a large part of their foreign exchange needed to pay the debt from exports to the United States. If you make it nearly impossible for countries like Brazil or India or South Africa or Nigeria or to export, in a country like Egypt, for example, 30% of their exports are required to maintain their debt service. And they have a very significant debt. We will be seeing defaults as a result of this. Second change that will occur. There is going to be, and we are already seeing, drastic tectonic shifts in the actual physical flows of economic trade internationally. Previously, we have seen tectonic shifts on the financial side in de-dollarization, with more and more countries saying we have to have an alternative because if you stay with the dollar, this is a cancerous system whose speculative aspects reach $2 quadrillion. And just to avoid confusions, 2 quadrillion is a 2 followed by 15 zeros. It cannot be paid. It can't be paid with 13 zeros, 17 zeros, or 15 zeros. This is a speculative bubble which is exploding, cannot possibly be maintained. So what we will be seeing is not only financial shifts, but also physical economic shifts. We've seen this in the oil trade that's been going on. We're seeing it in rare metals. We're seeing it across the board. The center of world economics has shifted irreversibly from the standpoint of the West. It has shifted to the East and the South. And that is the world of the global South, the global majority, the SCO, the BRICS, and so on. That is a reality that no amount of yelling and screaming is going to change. The third effect of these crypto tariffs, and I call them crypto tariffs because it goes along with the announced policy of the Trump administration to shift to a drastic increase in cryptocurrency as a means of trying to bail out the bankrupt financial system. The same person, the Trade Secretary, Howard Lutnick, who is the one who has been the brains, if you can call it that, behind the tariff policy, and he's a hedge fund manager from Cantor Fitzgerald, that's who he is the same person who reportedly convinced President Trump to abandon his previous opposition to cryptocurrency and stable coins and so on, which he was opposed to, and instead go into it 100%, both personally and as president of the United States. And what this cryptocurrency is going to do is going to drastically increase the amount of financial instruments in circulation with absolutely no backing whatsoever. Not only is this funny money with no backing in physical production, but we can call it very funny money. It's not only has no backing, it is issued by non-state players. One thing is a digital currency issued by a central bank. Good, fine. If the central bank policies channels money into credit for development, no problem. But if you have private institutions, banks in particular, who are issuing cryptocurrency, not only with no backing in real production, but backed by only those private interests, this will lead to waves of bankruptcy. And what we will see is very significant inflation in the United States, in Western Europe, not just because the tariffs will increase the cost, but more importantly, by the inflation of the financial aggregates on a global scale. Now, I would like to conclude by showing you, hopefully share screen will work here, 2 or 3 graphics which make my point. This is one that indicates the difficulty in actually paying debt when your export earnings are being slashed. You can see a country like Egypt, as I was saying. But here's the world financial system. This is why I am choosing to emphasize this one particular point within the global thrust of the GGI, which I find to be excellent and very much coherent with the views of the Schiller Institute and its founder, Helga Zepp-LaRouche. But this emphasis on the financial architecture. Global financial aggregates, this includes everything, not just debt, which is bad enough, $300 trillion globally, not just the capitalization of the stock market, which is bad enough, about 100 trillion, but derivatives, financial derivatives. These have grown massively ever since, in particular in 1999, in the United States, we foolishly eliminated a law called Glass-Steagall from the Roosevelt days, which separated financial banking from commercial banking. Once those were brought together, massive speculation, and you can see the results. Today, we have over $2.1 quadrillion in derivatives internationally, a 2 with 15 zeros, absolutely unpayable. If you try to maintain this bubble, as the current system is doing, as the current financial architecture is doing, you will create wars, as we are seeing in many places. You will create genocide, as we are seeing in Gaza, and unfortunately, many other places as well, Haiti, Sudan, and so on. And you will create the circumstances for the implosion of the existing institutions, which my predecessors on the panel have very accurately referred to. The global institutions are dysfunctional. And the underlying cause, in my view, is this financial architecture which is blowing apart. This is what has been done by the City of London and Wall Street banks to address this. Quantitative easing. Since 2007 until 2021, over $27 trillion in central bank money has been issued through quantitative easing, mainly the Fed, also the ECB and others, with the argument that this money should be used for banks to be able to lend to the economy and so on. The banks got the money. The lending to the productive economy was zero, absolutely zero. It went only to maintain the speculative bubble. When that stopped working and was insufficient, around 2021, they cooked up this idea of cryptocurrencies to fill that gap of speculative instruments. And here's what we're looking at today. They are talking about over $100 trillion in cryptocurrency stable coins, which are not stable in the least. That's a subject we can take up in the discussion if people are interested. But we're talking here about massively inflating the speculative bubble even further. So therefore, one of the central questions to be able to have global governance, to have the kind of world which we need, where it is not a dog eat dog world or the law of the jungle, but rather one of a common future for a shared humanity, which I emphasize is the basis on which the United States was founded originally by Washington, Hamilton, Lincoln, and others. To do that, to have a United States which can and should work with the nations of the global South, we require a very dramatic reform of this financial system so that we can get rid of this financial bubble and instead have a new system based on development, cooperation, and the welfare of the entirety of humanity. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Dennis Small. You are always very elaborative, very wise. It is always a matter of great pleasure to listen to you. And definitely, so that is a less talked area. Financial system or the financing, or the role of financing a financial system. That is less talked area, but it is the main cause of the collapse of the global governance system. So now we will move to our next speaker. He is a diplomat. He also served as an ambassador of South Africa and Pakistan. He also served in the intelligence community of South Africa. He was trained in USSR and he served in different countries across the world for the South Africa. His name is very difficult for me to pronounce, so I will apologize if I pronounce it wrong. His Excellency Mathumatazela Matazekia. Please unmute yourself. Please unmute yourself.
That's a mouthful to pronounce my name. Such an easy one. It just shows as well how much easy it is and quick to forget. I spent 4 years with you, Mr. Mr. Ramin.
But I remember you.
Well, yes, yes. Anyway, um, I do want to express my special greetings to our chief guest, Mr. Shi Yankyang. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly as well. Our special guest, my friend, Mr. Hussein Said. Of course, not the least, a friend of mine, Mr. Latif Khan, and fellow speakers. Thank you very much for this opportunity to participate in this important event. I don't have a lot to say. I have decided to pick on just one small thing, but yet important, significant in human life and endeavor, leadership. It is to me very interesting that all these years, 80 years of the existence of the UN, if I may say, the system of governance, international governance, 80 years. Any animal or human being or anything that is alive should have at least by now gained wisdom to transform itself or be old enough to be wise. So I take it for an example that it's, as Dr. Gohir said, it's long overdue that we came to this point. Of course, this point at which we are epitomized by what I call the leadership character in President Xi Jinping, who decided to take it by the horn from the P5 countries and lead. I'm saying this because in the wisdom that I detect in this is that he was able to listen, see where the wind is going, see where the failures of the current systems are expressed by many, many, many members of the United Nations, more than ever before. In my assessment of this, I want to also add a bit from President Ramaphosa in the United Nations General Assembly just this week, where he said, the United Nations Security Council has proved to be ineffective in its current form and composition in carrying out its charter mandate to maintain peace and security. South Africa remains deeply concerned of the Security Council and its failure to ensure accountability and uphold international law. It is in this context and context of many speeches, and particularly the Good Governance Initiative. As my colleagues have said, there are many initiatives that have taken place. This is, according to me, Dr. Kabir, the fourth as well. I think so. But certainly, I don't count PRI. I made a mistake. But anyway, this is where we are at the crossroads. Really, at the crossroads. There is no way, I think, back. We have looked at all the conditions and that prevail today as compared to those that prevailed then when the UN was formed. I came to the conclusion that probably this is the most difficult task at this point that requires a leader which has the interests of the larger group of members of member states, which in this case, unfortunately or fortunately, it is China in this regard. Most difficult in the sense that it seemed easier or was easier to establish the League of Nations just after a war and establish a UN just after a war. As we all know, peace after a war or any arrangement after a war always favors the victor. Not even the onlookers are taken into account. It's easier in that sense, but difficult because it comes out of war. But it's just somehow a command and control kind of system. And of course, the Cold War didn't give any chance to any meaningful governance system to the world. With all that, it should be by now clear to everybody that this is necessary to do. However, we can moderate our different approaches to global governance with, in my view, this is only my view, with a combination of a consultative process, but it must be led by a leading country. It must be given that impetus of respectability. So I am not saying others can't do that, but I'm saying the one that does that must be supported. I see right now that there is a movement forward from the consultative side of my theory in the form of a pact for the future, which was adopted in 24 summit and endorsed this last summit. My sense is that still there are differences in implementation of this. There's G4, there's a Zuluni consensus, there is a whole lot of other, including the P5 itself. But I'm happy that in the P5, you have China that is really taking this much more beyond just simply words at the UN. I consider that as a sponsorship. We can't run away completely from the fact that there are powerful countries than others. That is a fact. But the most important thing is, how do they exercise that power? Are they bringing the rest of the members along or not? That is why I decided to just grab that point, that if leadership is provided in a situation where there is a need for it and there is a challenge or problems, it's there most of the time, or should be, people-centric. As far as we know, China, President Xi got guidance from the rest of the world. But as I said, he's decided to take the mantle, take the baton to the New World Order. And having said that, I do want to say that, inshallah, no other ideological issues come into this process, because it is the only hope for our survival as mankind. Mr. Small also sort of mentioned this by way, looking at one aspect. I think they are all important, as Dr. Havohir said, and work better or will produce better results when they are looked at together. All these initiatives. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, His Excellency, for your very learned remarks. And you are always brief. And there you were again brief. You are right. Some country have to play the leadership role. And only that country can play a role of leadership which equally care about the other. And Chinese philosophy of international relation, which is based on sharing the prosperity and consultative growth, I think that makes China a perfect candidate. Let's hope China will keep on following this philosophy. Now we will move to our next speaker. He has a diverse background. Once he was a politician, he was a deputy speaker of a lower house of Malaysia, and then he turned to be an intellectual. Then he created two think tanks. One is the Center for International New Asia, and he is also on the Belt and Road Initiative. He worked extensively. Now I would like to request His Excellency Ong T. Kid to give his remarks.
Thank you, Shakir. Well, I'm now speaking from a different corner of Asia, that is Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And well, I must thank our moderator for his kind invitation, and more so, the topic of the day, the Global Governance Initiative, is very timely indeed. And the GGI, the Global Governance Initiative, is rolled out when the global governance comes to a crossroad characterized by increasingly fragile peace and incoherent leadership, alongside denial of the global majority's aspirations by rising unilateralism. It coincides with the 80th anniversary of the founding of United Nations, which saw the increasing untenability of rules-based world institutions, rendering global governance dysfunctional in face of common challenges. It serves as a clarion wake-up call to alarm the world, to alarm the international community of the imperative to reflect and reset the existing global order before further decadence. To me, Mr. Chairman, the GGI presents a multi-dimensional agenda for resetting the global governance with actionable and deliverable initiatives which are entailed in the GDI, that is Global Development Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, and the Global Civilization Initiative, respectively. The non-mutually exclusive GDI and GSI form the mutually reinforcing dual which promotes peace through development, and the dividends of peace in return will further provide a conducive environment, bolstering development. Parallel to this, Mr. Chairman, the GGI provides a Chinese solution to breaking the civilizational silos that impede civilization interaction, inter-civilization interaction and understanding, thereby preempting the prophecy of civilizational clash. Now the GGI calls for the world to take real actions in addressing the prevailing woes, derailing the global governance. It is not that major shortcomings remain unidentified, but rather it is the lack of collective global resolve in resetting the skewed order for fear that the reigning hegemon might have its primacy hamstrung. Mr. Chairman, the set of 5 core concepts underscored in the GGI portrays an ideal model of global governance that the world should rightfully be striving for. It is not compelling as it aligns with the contemporary needs and aspirations of the global majority. Yet it remains a tall order as the reigning hegemon stays recalcitrant in upholding its exceptionalism, mounting a naked challenge to sovereignty, equality, and international rules of laws. Meanwhile, promoting multilateralism is central to fostering globalized cooperation, which is crucial to mitigating common challenges concertedly. Conversely, protectionist unilateralism would only catalyze fragmentation of our global village, rendering the international community impotent in face of exigencies. The ideal of committing to people-centric approach is virtually rooted in inclusivity that involves all stakeholders who ultimately deserve to be rewarded with a fair share of dividends of any human endeavor. Indeed, this is a tall order again amid the world of diverse polity and political systems, but certainly it is an egalitarian model. Mr. Chairman, to go for action and result-oriented approach in resetting global governance is absolutely relevant and imperative to command the delivery of the deliverables. Ultimately, as the GGI is gaining traction with more countries coming on board, it is envisaged that the privileged minority, which has been holding sway in global matters for too long a time, will gradually have its clout eroded, thus paving way for the potential emergence of a more egalitarian order. The 4 initiatives, that is the GDI, The GSI, GCI, and the GGI are interrelated and mutually complementary. Comprehensively, the four-in-one set envisions to foster a new model of global governance underpinned by an egalitarian and multilateral order, characterized by inclusivity and symbiosis, alongside being grounded in development-driven peace and civilizational understanding, thus leaving no space for exceptionalism and hegemony. The successive rollout of public goods in the form of global initiatives by China as a Chinese solutions to the ailing global governance is a clear manifestation of China's commitment to playing a more prominent global role as a major power. No other nation should ever frown upon it, more so when the incoherent global governance is getting increasingly untenable in the present evolving order. Mr. Chairman, amid the cacophony of calling out China for allegedly creating an alternative global order, China should remain unapologetic, as the existing order has long been compromised under the heavy influence of Washington. The post-World War II order was being established to sustain global peace under the watch of victors of Second World War, primarily the United States. And over the past 8 decades, the global dynamics have been evolving from the Cold War bipolar order to one of unipolar order after Cold War, followed by globalization that catalyzed the rise of multipolarity. When the compromised global order is attuned to serving Washington's unilateral interests at the expense of global majority, calls and actions for resetting the ailing order are absolutely necessary, relevant, and laudable. It shouldn't be dealt as synonymous with intentions to supplant the primacy of the reigning hegemon, who is idly turning a blind eye to the pressing common challenges confronting the entire humanity. In this context, the GGI hit the nail right on the head with its core ideas resonating with the common expectations of the global majority. And knowing that the GGI is set to be confronted with a rough international terrain ahead, the initiative needs to garner sufficient support worldwide to gain the desired traction. It shouldn't be left as a mere ideal, much less a geopolitical rhetoric, but instead, GGI must go in unison with the other 3 global initiatives to make it actionable. To this end, Mr. Chairman, partnership engagement with regional and sub-regional groupings is to be prioritized with specific programs rolled out under the framework of the 4 initiatives. And all this have to go in tandem with the full cooperation of such alternative multilateral development banks, such as AIIE and the New Development Bank, which are tasked to address the potential gaps in development finance. In view of the prevailing China-ASEAN dynamics and the enduring ties, Mr. Chairman, ASEAN member states, including Malaysia, look receptive of the GGI. This is my observation so far. Such optimism stems primarily from the bloc's positivity towards the various Chinese-led initiatives, such as the Belt Road Initiative, China-ASEAN Free Trade Area 3.0, and the ideal to build an ASEAN-China community with shared future. That being said, Mr. Chairman, in preserving versatility of the initiative, perhaps China should consider the creation of more initiative-based mini-laterals with ASEAN, even without full participation of all member states at one go. This is purely my 2 cents worth. And in view of the diverse priorities of on the agenda of various member states, they could be given the liberty to embark on the minilateral when they are ready. This helps to preempt any unkind move intended to derail the consensus building by any single member state, driven by its own calculus when a full multilateral partnership is being sought. In advancing the GGI, Mr. Chairman, ASEAN, which is the top trading partner of China, could provide a good template in linking regional development with broader global governance. And the three pillars of ASEAN Community Vision 2045 in political security, economics, and social culture constitute ready dimensions for collaboration with China in pursuit of a resilient, innovative, dynamic, and people-centered ASEAN. This collective vision of strengthening regional peace, economic integration, and social development aligns well with the four Chinese initiatives designed to reset the global governance. To this end, the existing China-ASEAN partnership makes an ideal platform to extend beyond mere trade. That means to say, the enduring ties shouldn't be just confined within the limits of trade. The leverage to engage with other regional groupings for broader cooperation is to be given full play. In this context, the ASEAN-China Gulf Cooperation Council Trilateral Summit held earlier this year is a remarkable classic example, a classic milestone, starkly contrasting the prevailing trend of protectionist fragmentation. Mr. Chairman, thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. It is difficult to get hold of you, but it is always a pleasure to listen to you. Thank you so much for your very learned remarks. Now we will
Thank
move
you.
to
So
our
kind of you.
now we will move our next speaker. In Pakistan, there is a saying, if you're working on China and you don't know Mishas and Sayyid Saab, that means you don't know about China. So China and Mashah Saab, that they're a synonymous name in Pakistan, and I personally always love to learn from him. There are 2-3 people from whom, when I started to work on China, I learned. One was the late Akram Zaki Saab, then Riaz Khan Saab from office, and the most important person, that is Sayyid Senator Mashah and Sayyid Saab. Sir, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shakil Rame, and greetings from Islamabad to all the distinguished panelists who are here. I'm very grateful for this timely initiative that has been taken to bring together this galaxy of speakers from all over the world. Excellency Shi Yuanqiang, Deputy Head of Mission of China, Dr. Nabil Gohar Saab, who is now in Beijing. I also want to recognize Mr. Dennis Small from the Schiller Institute in Washington, D.C. When I was a student in Washington, D.C. in Georgetown University, I had the privilege and pleasure of meeting Mr. Lyndon LaRouche in the 70s when he was a candidate of the US Labour Party for president. And then I went back to Washington, I remember in 2002, and I again met Mr. Lyndon LaRouche, this time at his office. A friend of mine took me there, Mr. Mark Brzezinski, for an interview. And I'm aware of the very good role that the LaRouche movement has made, and the Schiller Institute, especially in bringing harmony and coexistence between cultures, countries, and civilizations. I would also like to recognize 2 very good friends, Mr. Matutu Zeli Madiksia, comrade from South Africa, who served with distinction in Pakistan. And I've had the great honor and privilege of being minister in waiting to the great Nelson Mandela in 1999 when he came here as president of South Africa, and I was Minister for Information, Culture, and Tourism. And I also want to recognize my good friend in Kuala Lumpur, Mr. Ong Ti Kit, whom I keep meeting mostly in Beijing, in China, and different conferences. So it's a great pleasure to be here. before I begin, I would like to provide the context for today's session is very important. We live in a time of changes, as President Xi Jinping rightly said. We are witnessing once in a century changes that we have never seen before. And I would just mention three important contexts before I embark on the subject. One is that today I would like to congratulate our Chinese friends. Today is the 70th anniversary of the establishment of the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. And it was established under the leadership of Chairman Mao and the Communist Party of China in 1955. And today there was a grand meeting in Urumqi, which I happened to witness live on CGTN television. And Mr. Victor Gao was there before that on an interview. And there was a very good, important speech by His Excellency Wang Guning, who is the member of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China. And I think on governance issues, Xinjiang is a success story because Xinjiang has transformed the lives of its people, of its different communities who live there. In 55, they had a lifespan of 30 years. Now it's 77 years. And I've been to Xinjiang about 20 times in the last 25 years, and I've seen that transformation personally. And by the way, I've been to China. I first went to China when I was a teenager, at the age of 17, and in the last 50 years, I've made over 100 visits there. And I'm still a student of China. So it's a remarkable transformation. The second important context is that this year also marks the 70th anniversary of the Bandung Conference, the Afro-Asian Bandung Conference, which today, when we talk of the Global South, the seeds of that, the roots of Third World Solidarity were laid in Bandung, in which Pakistan was a co-sponsor, along with the great Dr. Sukarno of Indonesia and Premier Zhou Enlai of China, as well as India and Sri Lanka and Burma at that point in time. And the third important context which we are witnessing is the huge epochal transformation in the global balance of economic and political power, the shift from the West to the East. And we are living today in the Asian century. So that, I think, is extremely important. And other speakers have also mentioned the so-called rules-based order, which had been fashioned primarily by Western countries in the aftermath of World War II, is now unraveling. I would say it's collapsing because it has failed to serve the needs of the people. And the collapse is because of three reasons primarily. One is the quest for hegemony by the West, particularly the United States of America. And that quest for hegemony has failed. And we are now also seeing the emergence of a multipolar world order based on multilateralism and connectivity and cooperation. And I think what happened in Tianjin on 1st of September, when President Xi Jinping launched the Global Governance Initiative, and what happened in Beijing on 3rd of September, when there was this historic parade with 26 countries participating, their leaders, including Pakistan, that showed that the Global South is now being spearheaded by China, and that is a leading force in world politics. And then the other reason why this so-called global rules-based order collapsed, and this collapse has been mentioned by Western publications like The Economist, and even the European Union Commissioner Ursula von der Leyen has mentioned that the West, as we know it, has ceased to exist, is because of double standards. Double standards on issues, double standards on human rights, double standards on politics, and a failure to be principled and uniform across the board. And the third reason for the failure is the approach of militarism, especially after 9/11, when the United States was a proponent of the principle of might is right. And that failed miserably in the world after they squandered $8 trillion fighting in mostly Muslim countries, and the failure in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Libya, in Syria, in Yemen, in Somalia has been very evident, also in parts of Pakistan, formerly Fatah, where there were bombings also. because they squandered $8 trillion. They had over 1 million people killed. There are 30 million people homeless, displaced, or became refugees in their own countries or refugees outside. And they also used over 300,000 bombs, missiles, and drones, but they failed in their objective. So what we are seeing today is the need for an alternative global order that is based, number one, on international law, and secondly, on the United Nations Charter, where the principle of sovereign equality, which is the first principle in the global governance initiative of President Xi Jinping, is enunciated, and where the basis is international law. And I think that is why the Chinese foreign policy, especially under President Xi Jinping, since the 18th Congress of the Communist Party of China in 2012, has been very clear in focusing on these various initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative, like the Global Civilization Initiative, like the Global Development Initiative, like the Global Security Initiative, and now the Global Governance Initiative. Pakistan welcomes these initiatives. We also took part yesterday in the United Nations on the Global Development Initiative, which was under the chairmanship of the Chinese Prime Minister Li Qiang. And we feel that the way forward is win-win cooperation, connectivity, and bringing people together on similar platforms. In this context, we feel that issues like the genocide in Gaza being perpetrated by Israel with the connivance and complicity of the United States and Western supporters of Israel, as well as even the Ukraine war, which was frankly promoted by the military-industrial complex of the United States via NATO, as well as some Western countries, is something which is detrimental to world peace, security, and stability. So the need of the hour is to establish a new global order that is based on equality, that is based on reciprocity, and that is based on inclusivity. China presents that way forward, and we welcome those initiatives. And we also welcome the initiative of President Xi Jinping to bring together world leaders on one stage based on a principled approach to the building of a better tomorrow without any overlords, a better tomorrow without any underdogs, and a more peaceful and a more prosperous and a more inclusive tomorrow. Pakistan is on the right side of history, and so is China, and so is the global South, which is the world's majority. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I think that the Global Governance Initiative is timely, and it is the need of the hour in a world that is facing turbulence and transformation. Thank you, Mr. Shakil Rame, for, as usual, taking positive initiatives. And I keep reading your articles on various issues in the national press. And mashallah, you're doing a great job in the battle of ideas as well. Good luck to you, and all the best to all the distinguished panelists on this important webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And you are a beacon of light for us to learn more from you when it comes to the China and other regional dynamics. And definitely, we would love to listen to you more. And inshallah, we will organize some more event where we can have more time with you. Now we will move forward to our chief guest for today's session. I must admire his patience because he is listening to everybody for a long time, and he has joined our meeting even before start of the meeting. So His Excellency is Xi Jinping. That is my problem. I cannot pronounce some name.
Xi Yuanchang.
Jinping. So I will like he is a deputy head of mission at China Embassy in Pakistan, and before that he was serving in the US. So he has a both experience about the global governance, so where it starts and where it is going. And today we are very thankful to him for joining us timely, and still he is here. Sir, the floor is yours.
Excellency, Mr. Sayed Mujahid Hussein, my close friend and also teacher about China and China-Pakistan.
Thank you, sir.
I fully agree, Mr. Rame just said, you are one of the top China experts in Pakistan. The other top certainly is Mr. Rami himself. His Excellency Ong Hee, His Excellency Mr. Musuzulali Madik Sir, His Excellency Mr. Nabil Gohir, His Excellency Mr. Gao Zhikai, His Excellency Mr. Dennis Small, His Excellency my good brother Mr. Shakil Rami, and also another true China expert, especially about Chinese modernization and all this President Xi Jinping's global initiatives. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good morning, Assalamu alaikum, ni hao. It's my great honor to be present in this webinar and make my humble opinion about this very important topic. First, I'd like to express my gratitude to Mr. Rami for organizing this very important event and for his meticulous preparation, and to all of the distinguished guests for all your contribution and support for China's development and your dedication to the development of global governance. Against the backdrop of the accelerating global changes and the intertwined international challenges, President Xi Jinping's proposal of the Global Governance Initiative at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Plus meeting couldn't be more timely. This initiative further contributes Chinese wisdom and solutions to the improvement of global governance, outlines the principles, methods, and pathways for reforming and refining global governance, and demonstrates China's commitment as a major country to fostering a more just and equitable global governance system and advancing toward a community with a shared future for humanity. The theme of this webinar, Global Governance Initiative and People-Centric Governance, which highlights the close connections between these two important ideas and accurately captures the core path of current global governance development. By listening to all the previous distinguished speakers, I have also gained invaluable insights from all your remarks and contributions. I highly appreciate. The Communist Party of China consistently adheres to the people-centric development philosophy. We always make serving the people wholeheartedly as our fundamental principle and strive to fulfill the people's aspiration for a better life. The people-centric approach is also an integration of the Marxist view of the people with China's prominent tradition culture. The people-centric character is the most distinctive picture of Marxism. Well, there is also an ancient Chinese saying that the people are the foundation of a country, and only when the foundation is solid can the country enjoy peace. And this concept is deeply rooted in Chinese civilization, embodies the political ideas of Chinese sages throughout history, and has become the core principle of CPC. Since its founding, the CPC has made pursuit of happiness for the Chinese people its fundamental mission, which is also the root cause of its success in garnering popular support and achieving revolution victory, as well as the driving force behind its great accomplishments since the founding of the People's Republic of China. Unlike Western governance models, which are very likely influenced by party rotations, electoral interests, and special interest groups, the CPC's people-centric approach aims to effectively maintain and develop fundamental interests of the vast majority of the people. CPC consistently implements the mass line, upholds whole process people's democracy, carries out self-reform and discipline with high standards and requirements, and always maintain close ties with the people. Over the past 76 years, China has transformed from an impoverished country into a middle-income country, achieving in decades an industrialization process which took Western developed countries centuries. China has nurtured a mid-income group of over 400 million people and made hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. China has established the world's largest education, social security, and healthcare systems, covering 1.4 billion people, with an average life expectancy rising to 79 years. The people's fulfillment, happiness, and security continues to grow day by day. The CPC pursues not only happiness for the Chinese people only, but also progress for humanity and a better world for all. People of all countries are the fundamental participants and beneficiaries of global governance. Only by enabling people to lead better lives and continuously enhancing their confidence and expectations for the future can the global governance system gain broad support and function effectively. We must continuously improve global governance to bring people worldwide a greater sense of gain through promoting common development, a greater sense of security, by better addressing common challenges, and a greater sense of happiness by advancing the common interests of all nations and communities. In global development cooperation, China consistently prioritizes development within the global macro policy framework, from advocating for building an open, inclusive, clean, and beautiful world of lasting peace, universal security, and shared prosperity, to the practical implementation of the Belt and Road Initiative, which helps improve livelihoods and create jobs in over 150 participating countries. China's policies consistently focus on human needs, dignity, and development. In the fields of international governance, China's Global Governance Initiative firmly supports expanding the representation and the say of developing countries in international affairs. This principle of respecting differences and treating each other as equals is the greatest respect for the people of all countries. In areas such as public health, climate change, and food security that concern people's lives, health, and basic survival, China has always played an active role as a responsible major country, whether it is vigorously promoting green development, solemnly committing to the goals of carbon peaking and carbon neutrality, or putting forward the International Food Security Cooperation Initiative. China has always stood at the historical height of building a community with a shared future for humanity, contributing Chinese solutions to protecting the common home of mankind and safeguarding the health and future of humanity. China has always been committed to working with other countries to practice global governance centered on the people, providing new development opportunities for all countries through Chinese modernization, and first, certainly benefiting our iron brother Pakistan. President Xi Jinping stated that China's friendly policy toward Pakistan is always directed at all its people, and emphasized that the planning and the layout of the CPEC, that is China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, should benefit all regions of Pakistan, ensuring that the fruits of development reach everyone. We are glad to see that the passenger volume of the Lahore Orange Line project has exceeded 250 million. The number of patients treated by China-Pakistan Friendship Hospital in Gwadar has surpassed 300,000, and the enrollment of Fakir School has expanded to over 500 students. We donated 70,000 sets of health kits to Balochistan province, covering 23 regions and benefiting 766 schools. To help the people of Pakistan cope with the current flood threat, China has urgently donated tents, blankets, and provided cash assistance, and will further supply urgently needed disaster relief materials to our brothers and sisters. Moving forward, we will continue to implement more small but beautiful livelihood projects in Pakistan, deepen cooperation in education, youth, and cultural exchanges, carry forward our traditional friendship, promote people-to-people connectivity, and improve people's well-being. The Global Governance Initiative originates from China, but belongs to the world. We are pleased to see that the Global Development Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, and the Global Civilization Initiative have already taken roots and yield fruits in the world, particularly in Pakistan, with the National Assembly of Pakistan establishing a Global Development Initiative group. Following President Xi Jinping's proposal of the Global Governance Initiative, Prime Minister His Excellency Shahbaz Sharif immediately stated that this initiative holds great significance for world peace, development, and stability, calling it a historic step toward stronger multilateralism that will help the global governance system better meet the needs of developing countries and address common challenges. Pakistan fully supports and will actively implement it. In the future, we look forward to working with Pakistan to deepen and solidify the implementation of the 4 major global initiatives, particularly Joint Practice, Global Governance Initiative, Practice True Multilateralism, Advocate for an Equal and Orderly Multipolar World, Promote an Universally Beneficial and Inclusive Economic Globalization, and make unremitting efforts to build a community with a shared future for humanity. Thank you all. Thank you for your attention and patience. I really appreciate. Shukriya.
Thank you, His Excellency, for giving a brief introduction and the Chinese, and also let us know about the Chinese commitment to the initiative. I think there is a saying, charity begins at home. I think to understand the global governance initiative, we need to understand Chinese governance system. So the how China is implementing governance at its home, and how it has turned around the fate of Chinese people from 82% poverty in the 70s, the poverty-free country, the prosperous country. I think that is the best example of charity begins from home. So it can give us. There are many characters of Chinese governance. One of the people-centric, but for me, the most important one is the rule of law. When it says everyone will have to submit to the rule of law, no matter who is who. I think that is the key of Chinese governance system, which made it successful. And I think that is needed at the global level, because the rule of law is missing at the global level. So which has been, that's why many countries are exploiting the global system. With these remarks, thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody, and especially the panelists for today's session. Each of you, I think, required 2 hours to give a lecture on this subject, but I'm so thankful to you all. You remain confined in your given time. I think that is a wonderful thing which you did, and also a good learning from the young people who to tell the whole story within few minutes. And we are concluding this session today with the hope. I personally feel, my gut feeling, my intuition is telling me that a new initiative will be coming soon. Ecological construction, ecological civilization initiative. Because right now at the home, China is implementing the construction of the ecological civilization. And ecological civilization, I think, is more needed at the global level in the context of the existential threat of climate change and environmental degradation. With that hope, let's, if there is any question, 1 or 2 questions we can take quickly.
I'll just say, want to say something
Yes, sir.
briefly.
Sir.
I would like to say when we talk of global governance initiative, and I mentioned Xinjiang. Now, Xinjiang, there's a lot of propaganda about Xinjiang in the West. And it's not based on facts, it's based on geopolitics, because countries which want to contain China, which talk of Cold War, they use the cards, whether it's Tibet, Xinjiang, Hong Kong, and create this ruckus. But like Xinjiang is a success story of Chinese governance. A province which was so backward, today it is spearheading the linkage between China and Central Asia, in fact, part of Eurasia. And it is the key country of the Central Asian economic belt. And it is one province of China which borders Pakistan. So we in Pakistan know a lot about Xinjiang because there's a lot of compatibility in cultures, history, and heritage, and so forth. So I would say that the success story that you mentioned about China, about eradicating poverty, and I first went to China when I was a teenager in 1970s. The China of Chim and Mao, and Premier Zhou Enlai and General Jude. It was the early cultural revolution and so forth. And China was then poor, weak, and isolated. Today, China is rich, strong, and a global leader. So this transformation we have seen in front of our own eyes. And secondly, I'd also like to mention when there's this propaganda about the people of China and the role of the Communist Party, there was this survey done by Harvard University in the United States by the institute called ASH Center, ASH. And they did a long survey of Chinese public opinion. And they came to the conclusion, this is 2022, that there was a satisfaction score among the Chinese people about governance in China under the Communist Party, almost 90%. Now, this is an American think tank, part of Harvard University. This is what they said. You will never find it in the Western media. You will never find it in New York Times or Washington Post or CNN, because For them, the propaganda is paramount, not the truth. So I just wanted to set the record straight that the elements of Chinese governance, they say it's about delivery. And the Communist Party of China has delivered for the people of China a better quality of life and a better and a more prosperous future for the current generation and future generations, as opposed to what they were suffering in the past. It's a different China. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Dennis, you want to say something?
Yes, just very briefly. Thank you, Shakil. And I have to say the excellent discussion and contributions I've heard really constitute a wake-up call for the West in particular. And I don't mean only that this started at 5 a.m. for me, although that too. but and I would like to thank Senator Hussain in particular for recalling the role of the Schiller Institute and Lyndon LaRouche over these many years. Our efforts towards finding a dialogue of civilizations, not a clash of civilizations, and looking always for the fundamental common denominator in thinking in different parts of the world that can contribute to the one shared future of humanity. Incidentally, on the military-industrial complex, I like to refer to it as the military-industrial financial complex, because the owners of Lockheed Martin and all of the major companies actually are the major hedge funds and financial groups like State Street and Vanguard, and very importantly, BlackRock. So there's $1 trillion in the United States budget that goes to the military sector, taken from taxpayers, and then goes to Wall Street. So this is a unified complex. But what I really wanted to emphasize and thank everyone for is that we do need to construct a new security and development architecture internationally, where the security of every nation is assured, where security is indivisible, not just for one, but indivisible for all nations, and development too must be indivisible. We have to have the conditions for the development of all of humanity. This is very possible. In the West, we have the reference of the Treaty of Westphalia, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, where great conflicts, great wars, religious wars in the 17th century were resolved by finding a common purpose, which did not lie in killing each other, but finding the development looking forward. And I think that to the degree, and this would be a request that I would make to all of you, to help us get out in the West the voice of the global South, or the global majority. This is so important. The actual aspirations and directions which the vast majority of the world seeks to go in is something that must be known in the United States and in Europe. And I think you will find that there will, in fact, be resonance in the United States, in Europe, to these ideas, because we too have a tradition tracing it back, which is not the tradition of Wall Street. It is the tradition of, for example, Benjamin Franklin, who was a great student of Confucius. And when I hear the discussion of the pursuit of happiness that His Excellency, the DCM from China, referred to, this is, of course, enshrined in our very Constitution. So I feel we have so much in common. Your voice is so important. And please do not give up hope on us. We have a possibility of working together to make this a shared future for all humanity. And thank you again to the hosts of this meeting.
Thank you, Dennis Wan. And with these remarks, we will like to conclude. But I will suggest you one thing, Dennis.
May I say just a few words?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir. His Excellency.
Thank you. I just want to echo with Dennis, because I used to work in Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, I had the honor to attend an event organized by Schiller Institute, which is about Belt and Road Initiative. I remember maybe in the year of 2019, before the pandemic. That was very successful event. I remember. I think we'll remember very long. I think you are right. You are the, I think, the just and the true voice of the American people, which upholds these justice and the equality among the international order. I think the voices in the U.S. Like yours will certainly growing stronger. So I appreciate cooperation with your institute and wish you further success. And I also like to echo with just now what Excellency Ong T. Key said. He said about for this global governance initiative and together with other three global initiatives, we need to get it supported and appealed in more countries with more substantial actions, see more fruitful results, so that we can implement these initiatives more effectively. That's what exactly China want. We have actually seen many developments. We certainly will continue step our efforts, especially with cooperation with countries like Pakistan and other global South countries. We think by taking concerted efforts, we can make these global initiatives more beneficial to the world, to more people in the world, to make the international order going forward in the right direction, to make the dream of this better world, bright future come into true. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, His Excellency. And at the end, Dennis, I would like to suggest you to invite Mr. Mashahad Hassan on the International Peace Forum. So where I a few days back I delivered a lecture. He has a very good understanding of Gaza and Palestine, what was being discussed there. And he can brief you inside stories, what is happening there, and the context of Iran, and the context of these countries, how they are fighting and what is happening there. So I strongly suggest you to invite him there to give a lecture. Sir, that is a very big forum. I delivered a lecture.
Thank you very much. Accepted with pleasure.
And there was
Thank
more
you.
than the 200 people, sir, for participants for that lecture.
Sure.
It's a very big
Excellent.
forum. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody, and see you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
See
a
you
lot.
soon again.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.